It's been 17 years since the government's £46 billion bailout of RBS. That was £46 billion that wasn't spent on schools, on hospitals. It was money that wasn't spent on the military, on playgrounds, on parks, on the arts. I'd like to start by asking you to reflect on that event and the consequences. Is there anything you would like to say to the public?
Well, as a recent arrivee at the bank, it's telling that people's reflections on this are reflective, and it's about a desire to express gratitude to the taxpayers. I mean, they not just rescued this bank, they protected millions of savers, of businesses and homeowners, and from the bank standpoint, it gave us the opportunity to completely restructure into a much safer, a stronger bank.
Do you think the bank and the broader industry in general has earned the public's trust back?
It's for the public to decide that, but what I will say is it's very clear to me that this is a very different place, that there is a focus on the ethics of running a bank, on really focusing on customers, on treasuring public trust. This is not a place where people are looking for quick wins to serve the few. This is somewhere where we recognize every day we've got to earn that trust of the customers, and we hope we're doing so.
So 17 years on, you talked about the change, but the Chancellor has been very vocal about the need to deregulate the city. She said, I think, that some of the post-2008 reforms have gone too far. Do you agree with her?
Well, we support the drive for growth. I think that's very necessary for the nation. But at the same time, and I think she recognises that we have very high quality regulation in the UK, and that's a source of national competitive advantage. So we're not advocating deregulation, but this is an opportune moment to see whether we can bring greater clarity, whether we can eliminate some duplication, whether we can deal with some areas of unintended consequence. And it's worth doing that in support of it. But this is not about triggering a race to the bottom.
But might it involve some watering down of the regulations that we saw post-2008?
Well, I think the regulator stepped in very necessarily 17 years ago and raised the standards it expects of banks, of their leaders, of people who work in those places, made demands of the culture, and made demands of its service to customers. All that is very right. Inevitably, the pendulum can swing slightly too far, and one must question whether it swung slightly too far. But I use the word slightly.
We spoke a bit about the Chancellor. What do you think of the way she's approaching things? Because obviously the health of the economy is reflected in the health of the banks and vice versa. Do you think her plan for growth is the right one? Do you think she's going about it the correct way?
We do. We think they're asking the right questions. They're asking the right questions about skills, about the industrial strategy, about housing, about planning. They recognize this strange gap between perceptions, sentiment in the country, which is still quite negative, and actually what we're seeing in the facts, whether you look at unemployment, GDP, inflation, arrears rates, balance sheets, all of those, actually, if you take them at face value, are quite healthy.
So do you think she's getting a hard time, unfairly?
Well, I don't think governing is easy, but I think the government is trying to find that trigger, and there's some big set pieces coming soon: the industrial strategy, the strategic defence review. I mean, these are important moments, and I think everyone's going to be watching very carefully for the signals they send.